What's up, everybody? It's your girl D here with 8th House Energy, and this is just going to be a little preview of information that I want to put out about the Venus. I'm sorry, I don't know why I said Venus, but Jupiter, which is in retrograde, and Chiron, which is in retrograde. The reason I'm doing them both together in the videos because they're both in retrograde in Aries. Now, when we talk about Chiron, Chiron is the wounded healer. You may want to do a little research on the story of Chiron. He was a very famous he was a centaur, and he was a very famous healer. He was known all over the world. People from all over the world back in the time when he existed, when he was alive, would come to learn from him. He was well versed in medicine and healing, right? So people from all over would come to learn from him. However, he had his own wound that wouldn't heal, but he didn't let that stop him from helping others and teaching others how to heal their own wounds, and then thus then being able to help others heal. Okay, so we're dealing with that energy. We're also dealing with Jupiter. Okay, Jupiter, when it's direct, it deals with excess, expansion, and growth. Now, with Jupiter in retrograde, we're looking at either why, okay, we're either looking at you've done something, you've done too much. It's either been excessive, you expanded too much, or you grew too much. And it was because of some compulsive, obsessive, compulsive type of energy. Okay? And either with Jupiter in retrograde, either we're looking at, because Jupiter is all about taking risks. It's like, okay, you may have taken a risk and you took a risk, and it put you in the point where you were doing too much for it. You did too much, right? You overextended yourself, you overwhelmed everything. It's just an excess. Or you had an opportunity to take a risk and you didn't take a risk. Now, the reason that Jupiter in retrograde and Chiron are in retrograde are relating in the same house is because, like I said, Chiron is the wound that we have. You know how we all have to get up and go out in the world and survive and do what we got to do regardless to our own, situations. For example, those of you who are parents, you may have your own issues that you got to deal with, but you still got to go out there and make it happen for your family, especially if you're the provider, right? You still got to go out there in the world, no matter what your issues are, your personal concerns are. You still got to get up, go out there, provide, make sure you got money to pay the bills, feed everybody, make sure everybody has what they need, they get to and from, and be safe, right? You still got to do that regardless to your own wounds and your own, suffering. So it's the same thing with Chiron. Now, when it's in retrograde, what we're looking at is, what is that wound, right? What is that wound that, because Chiron in Aries directly is just basically an energy of, you know what, I do got these wounds, but I still got to go out there and hustle. I still got to get out here in life. I still got to do what I got to do. I still got a mission. I got to go out here. Whether you're and it's like technically you're like literally still bleeding, right? But you still got to get out there. It's like a warrior. You're out there fighting a battle. You may get injured, but you're still out there fighting even with your injury. Okay? Like you have to, because it's a matter of life and death. So you still gonna fight, right? So when Chiron is in retrograde, now we're looking at, okay, you've been fighting so long with this injury. Is like, do you even know you have this injury? Okay? If you and once you know you have the injury, the second thing we need to look at is how you're going to fix it. Before we can even fix it, though, we have to understand how the wound get there, how it got there. And when we're looking at Jupiter in retrograde, we're looking at, did it get there because you didn't take a risk and you undercompensated? Or did it get there because you took a risk and you overcompensated? You did too much. So you were in excess in some way. You were over greedy, you were overindulgent, self-absorbed in some way, or was your self-esteem so low that you let others be in excess over you, right? So we have to figure out what that wound is doing, right? And in order for us to first of all recognize that it's there and then fix it. So we have to first recognize it. Second, understand how it got there by looking at the Jupiter in retrograde, right? Looking at how it got there, either by you doing something in excess to compensate for the loss, or because you were doing too much to overcompensate. And then once we look at that, we look at the area of your life where that's going to show up, and that's the house that Chiron and Aries is in. Now, we all have our own individual Chiron that we natively were born with, So this Chiron in Aries represents what the collective is going through. So we're all warriors out here. We're all out here trying to live and do what we got to do, but we all still got some wounds that we got to heal. So now with Jupiter in retrograde and Chiron in retrograde, it's time for us to sit down, acknowledge this wound, figure out how it got there so that we can heal it. All right. So this is what I want you to keep in mind when you look at these Jupiter in retrograde readings, Chiron in retrograde readings in Aries that I'm going to do for you. All right. I hope that explains it. I didn't want to type that out in the community tab because I didn't think it would come across correctly. But I'm going to put this video in the community tab because this is what I want you guys to understand when you look at the Jupiter retrograde, Chiron retrograde readings that I'm going to put up for you. All right. Peace.